reactively when it comes to community safety. As you may know, over 200 civic leaders have written a letter to you asking for you to bring forward their letter to council during this session. The letter is entitled A Path Forward. And they've asked you to move that letter for consideration by council to take a collaborative approach to addressing encampments in our city's parks. They're concerned for the safety of people who are experiencing homelessness in our city, and they're concerned about the fact that by taking a more military style approach, in other words, sending uniformed people with arms on horseback into a park to clear it, it in fact doesn't effectively resolve the problem, which is a lack of housing and homelessness in our city. In other words, it just shoves the problem under a bridge or into
Councillor
a
Matlow, your question, please.
Park.
Your question.
So my question is, would you bring the letter forward as an agenda item with your support to take a more collaborative approach with both city staff and the on-the-ground activists who want to work together towards that approach? And if not, would you articulate in the letter exactly what problem you have with it, so we understand why you would be opposed to it, as I think you've indicated in the media before?
Well, Speaker, thank you. Through you to the member, I would just say that I think the approach we've been trying to take for a long, long time, as evidenced by the fact that, for example, there have been 20,000 visits, 20,000 collaborative visits made by our Streets to Home staff to residents living in the encampments to offer them counseling of various kinds, including finding alternative housing. And by the way, we've successfully, rehoused in a collaborative manner, completely collaborative manner, well more than 1,000. I think the number's around 1,500 of those very same people. And we have actually, if you look through what is suggested in the letter, the elements of not just rehousing people in places as they suggest, like the private hotels and better accommodation than an encampment. We've also provided them with supports in those settings, including supports with substance issues and other kinds of supports with mental health issues. And, I regret the characterization of the member, through you, Speaker, that we're sending military-style people in on horseback with arms. The only reason that the police ended up deploying themselves, and I didn't send anybody, nor did any other member of council, I don't participate in those decisions. But the people that were sent to the encampment, for example, at Trinity Bellwoods, were Streets to Homes and other workers who were there to help provide people with housing opportunities. And it was only when protesters made it unsafe potentially for them, the city staff members, and potentially for the people experiencing homelessness, that the police were dispatched in any shape or form whatsoever, beyond a few who were there at the initial outset to see, that people were kept safe. And so I guess, and I will say as well to the member, through you, Speaker, I can't speak to the exact signatories of the letter. I've seen the letter, but that there have been repeated attempts to sit and discuss with some of the advocates ways in which we can deal with this, but that the advocates, I will say, I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but basically much of what they will suggest when those discussions are taking place is really just delay. When in fact we have a certain, again, my responsibility and those of all of the people involved in this are to make sure we balance all the different interests, and that includes care for vulnerable people that are experiencing homelessness, but it also concerns the concerns of residents who call us in large numbers, and some of the councillors involved in these areas would have to acknowledge this, asking us if we could find a way in which to allow for their safe use of these very same parks, and not see the cancellation of programs, for example, as we've seen at Alexandra Park, where we cannot run the summer programs for some of the most needy kids in the entire city because the encampment continues to be there. And even when we go and ask politely that we be given the opportunity to remove some of the structures and tents that are empty there, we're told no. And so, I would just say that we're trying very hard to adopt a conciliatory approach for weeks and weeks on end, but there does come a time when you have to go and say, look, we've addressed the fact that these are unhealthy, unsafe, and illegal, and that then we have to do what we've been trying very hard to do on a collaborative basis, which is to have the people housed safely indoors and to remove those structures from the public parks where they're not safely in good health or legally entitled to be.